This is Traffic Jams here on CKUA. I'm Lisa Wilton, here with you until 6 p.m. Gianmarco Soresi has been hailed as a brilliant stand-up comedian and one of the funniest comedians in the world right now. High praise, but also well-earned. His smart and timely observational humor has made him a popular draw in comedy clubs. He's also the host of a very entertaining podcast called The Downside with Gianmarco Soresi, in which he invites guests on to talk about everything from the downside to playing the viola and being an architect to growing up on Staten Island. The New York-based comedian is bringing his Leaning In tour to Alberta this week for a show at the Laugh Shop in Calgary on February 28th before heading to the Comic Strip in Edmonton, February 29th to March 3rd. I'm very happy to welcome Gianmarco to CKUA this afternoon. Hello.
Hello, how are you?
I'm great. Thanks for swinging by today, or, well, maybe not swinging by, zooming in this afternoon and chatting to us for a little bit.
Yes, listen, I must really want to go there because it's looking cold. That's like I'm chasing down winter. It's just starting to warm up in New York.
Yeah.
So I must really love it.
Bring your parka. You know, you're from New York. You've got a parka.
Sure. I'll be ready.
Perfect. Well, first off, a common origin story for comedians is being the class clown in elementary school or junior high. You first did a comedy class in college, but did your interest in comedy start earlier than that?
Yeah, I was always like a theater kid. Always liked to be the center of attention.
Mm-hmm.
And I, maybe first grade, I think I was in The Princess and the Pea, a one morning only production of Princess and the Pea at my school.
Right.
And if I recall, I think I said to the princess, "I love you," and I turned to the audience, and it was very popular at the time for kids my age. Put a finger in my mouth and went, "Bleh." And I remember very distinctly it getting a big laugh with everyone, but the director slash gym teacher, of course. I feel like that's probably where it started. That was probably the first big reaction from adults and kids alike. And I was like, ooh, that felt good.
Right. When you did your first stand-up set, were you instantly hooked, or was it a disaster?
The first set was good because it was after a class. So everyone invited their friends and family, and it was a very warm, receptive audience.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's more about the second show. That's where things go south, where you go, oh, if it's not your friends and family, it's a lot tougher to get a laugh. I would do stand up once every 6 months. It would have been a lie to call myself a stand up comedian at that time. That didn't stop me, but it was a lie. And then years later, I started getting really into roast battles, which were very popular here in New York, and that's where you really bomb. When your joke is not super funny in a roast battle, not only do you bomb, but the comedian you're facing says a joke about you and they crush, and it's very humiliating. And it was through roast battles that I started understanding what level a joke needed to be to really get a laugh. And gradually I started getting better and worked some really rough clubs. I did the Czech spot at this club in New York called LOL, which is now closed, thank God. But the Czech spot is usually they don't pay you. It's the newer comedian. And right as you go up, all the waiters drop the check on the tables, and everyone gradually learns that they've been ripped off completely. They look down at this horrific number. They look up at me and they're like, this was not worth it at all. And that's kind of where I learned how to be good enough to do okay in that spot.
Now, your tour is called Leaning In because you do lean into the audience a bit, and you seem to like to get to know your audience. What has been your favorite audience interaction?
What I actually just put up recently, where this guy, he found out via a DNA test that who he thought was his full sibling was a half sibling, and basically found out that his father is not his biological father, and he's 40, and he hasn't told his dad. Turns out his sister, who they thought they had the same dad, neither of them have this dad. So he doesn't know if the mom was cheating, whether it was a sperm donor situation, and no one ever told the kids ever.
Oh, geez.
But it was just this guy just started sharing this story, and the more that I picked, the more I found out this incredible journey about him finding out, and he still hasn't told his father. I love talking about, because I come from a screwed up family. I
Hmm.
love hearing about other people's screwed up families because I feel the jokes that I can make about how screwed up they are in a way that I'm not hurting the person's feelings. That's never my intention. But I just feel like I've dealt with so many different family dynamics. I can really have a good conversation with someone about their family dynamics too.
Yeah.
And this one was a particularly fun one.
Now, you have a pretty popular podcast called The Downside with Gianmarco Soresi. Now, it doesn't sound very amusing, but being the downside, but you and your guests do find the funny side in failure and other problems. How has finding the lighter side to things in the podcast helped you deal with challenges that arise in your life?
I think art really it can offer a real solve to the pains of life, because in my mind when something bad happens to me it sucks,
Hmm.
but then I go, oh, I can turn this into a joke, I can turn this into an interesting story. And that's kind of where I think doing the podcast makes me feel good. Is sometimes when I'm going through a disastrous situation, I go, oh man, I can't wait to share this with other people.
Right.
And I think when we have guests on, that's where I try to get them to go, where instead of having to just kind of smile and do their little PR turn of, oh, well, this person was great and I'm so lucky and it was so great. I'm like, it'll feel better. It'll feel good if you can just say what sucked. Even the most famous and successful people, they have terrible days. And I don't need them to fake just being grateful 24/7. That it feels good to do that on a weekly basis when we record the podcast.
What kind of reactions have you heard from listeners?
Oh, I think people listen and they feel better about their own lives. They go, "Oh, thank God I'm not that guy." Uh, so people sometimes they write in their own things. We have a segment called "This Has Got to Stop," just something in society or personally that they wish would go away, and people love just submitting stuff that's annoying them, and I usually take their side and agree and complain about it on their behalf.
Well, finally, you're in Calgary and Edmonton this week. And I mean, you tour around a lot. Do you tailor your comedy to different locations?
I would wager there's no comedian in the world with more jokes about the Edmonton Mall than me. This will be my third time there, and I definitely have. I've been in Canada enough that I definitely have some Canadian, Canada specific material.
Well, thank you so much, Gianmarco. It was really great to talk to you today.
Thanks for having me.
That was Gianmarco Soresi. He'll be performing at the Laugh Shop in Calgary on February 28th, and then the Comic Strip in Edmonton, February 29th through March 3rd. Go to laughshopcalgary.com or thecomicstrip.ca for tickets and more info. Find out more about Gianmarco and his podcast at Gianmarco, that's Gianmarco, Soresi, Soresi.com.